After she caught her boyfriend cheating, Maya Bennett just wanted to forget. But after one night and one bad decision, everything changed. She wakes up in a luxury penthouse, with no memory of the night before and a wedding ring on her finger. The man beside her? Seoul's most feared mafia boss. This is how one drunken mistake turned into the most dangerous love story of her life. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for exciting love stories that'll leave you on the edge of your seat. Maya's head was pounding like someone had taken a sledgehammer to her skull. She groaned, pressing her palm against her forehead, trying to remember where she was. The silk sheets beneath her fingers felt expensive. Too expensive. Her eyes cracked open, and the first thing she saw was a ceiling so high it could belong to a cathedral, with a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than her entire apartment. This wasn't her bed. Panic shot through her veins like ice water. She sat up too quickly, and the room spun. Her mouth tasted like regret and expensive whiskey. She was wearing a white silk robe she definitely didn't own. Her dress from last night was folded neatly on a chair across the room, and her heels were placed perfectly by the door like someone had arranged them with care. Where the hell was she? Maya swung her legs off the bed, her bare feet touching cold marble floor. The penthouse stretched around her like something from a billionaire's fever dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Seoul's skyline in the morning light. Modern art hung on walls. Everything screamed money and power. Then her eyes landed on the bedside table, and her heart stopped. A marriage certificate, official, stamped, with her name printed in bold letters next to another name, Park Joon-ho. "No," she whispered, snatching the paper with trembling hands. "No, no, no, this has to be fake." But the signatures at the bottom looked real. Too real. And that was definitely her handwriting, even if she had no memory of writing it. The door opened without warning, and Maya jumped, clutching the certificate to her chest. A man walked in carrying a tray with coffee, and she forgot how to breathe. He was tall, probably 6'2", with sharp features that looked like they'd been carved by someone who understood beauty and danger in equal measure. His black hair was styled back, and he wore a white dress shirt with the top 3 buttons undone, revealing smooth skin and the edge of a tattoo. His eyes were dark, unreadable, and fixed directly on her. "Good morning, wife," he said, his voice smooth like whiskey and just as dangerous. Maya's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. He set the tray down on the table near the window, moving with the kind of confidence that came from owning every room he walked into. "You should drink the coffee. It helps with hangovers. And eat something. You didn't have dinner last night. Who are you?" The words finally escaped her throat, barely above a whisper. He turned to face her fully, leaning against the table with his arms crossed. A small smile played at his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Park Joon-ho. Though you were calling me June last night. Quite enthusiastically, if I recall." Heat flooded Maya's face, but she pushed it down, holding up the certificate. "What is this? What kind of sick joke is this?" "No joke." He nodded toward the paper. "That's a legal marriage certificate. Filed with the Korean government approximately 6 hours ago. We're married, Maya." "That's impossible. I don't remember." She pressed her hands to her temples, trying to force her brain to work through the fog. Fragments came back. The bar. Shots she shouldn't have taken. Music. Dancing. His hand on her waist. Laughter. So much laughter. And then... "The chapel," June said, watching her face. "You said you wanted to do something crazy. Something that would make your ex-boyfriend regret every choice he'd ever made." Marcus. The memory hit her like a punch to the gut. Walking into his apartment, finding him in bed with another woman. The betrayal that had shattered her into a million pieces. She'd left, numb and broken, and somehow ended up in a bar in Gangnam, drinking away the pain. "I didn't mean marry a stranger." Maya stood up too fast, swaying slightly. June moved forward, hands outstretched to steady her, but she stepped back. This isn't legal. We can annul it. Today. Right now. We could, June said slowly, straightening. His expression shifted, something colder sliding behind his eyes. But we won't. Excuse me? You're my wife now, Maya. That's not changing. She laughed, but it came out wrong, slightly hysterical. You're insane. I'm calling a lawyer. I'm calling the police. I'm calling... The door opened again, and two men in black suits entered. They were built like walls, with earpieces and expressions that suggested they'd seen things that would give normal people nightmares. They bowed toward her, a gesture so synchronized it had to be practiced. Mrs. Park, one of them said in accented English, we'll be stationed outside if you need anything. Maya stared at them, then at June, then back at them. Mrs. Park? What is this? Some kind of role play? June dismissed the men with a slight gesture, and they left as silently as they'd entered. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city like he owned it. Maybe he did. I should have told you last night, he said, his voice quieter now. But you were so beautifully reckless, so determined to forget your pain. I didn't want to ruin that moment. Tell me what? He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something genuine in his expression. Maybe regret. I'm the head of the Seoul Syndicate, Maya. In your country, you'd call it the Korean Mafia. Here, we prefer to think of ourselves as a family business. He smiled, but it was sharp as a knife. And you just became part of the family. The room tilted. Maya grabbed the bedpost to steady herself, her mind screaming that this couldn't be real. This was a nightmare, a horrible, twisted nightmare brought on by expensive whiskey and heartbreak. But June's eyes told her a different story. This was very, very real, and she was trapped. If you're already hooked and want to see how Maya escapes this marriage to a mafia boss, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you'd do in her situation. Trust me, this story is just getting started. Maya didn't wait for permission. The moment June turned his back, she ran for the door, her bare feet slapping against the cold marble. Her heart hammered in her chest, adrenaline drowning out the pounding in her head. Freedom was just beyond that door. She could feel it. But freedom wasn't waiting for her. The door swung open before she reached it, and a mountain of a man stepped into the frame. He wore the same black suit as the others, but this one looked like he'd been carved from granite. His expression didn't change when he saw her running toward him. He simply stood there, an immovable wall of muscle and silent authority. Maya skidded to a stop, her breath coming in sharp gasps. She looked over her shoulder at June, who hadn't moved from his position by the window. He watched her with something that might have been sympathy if his eyes weren't so cold. "Let me out," she demanded, her voice trembling despite her best effort to sound strong. The giant man didn't speak, didn't blink. He was a statue programmed for one purpose, and that purpose didn't include letting her escape. "Minjae takes his job very seriously," June said from behind her, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "And his job is to make sure nothing happens to you, not even your own hand." Maya spun around, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You can't keep me here like a prisoner." "I'm not keeping you prisoner." June's voice was calm, measured, like they were discussing the weather instead of her captivity. "You're free to go anywhere in Seoul. Shopping, restaurants, museums. Minjae will escort you. But you cannot leave the city, and you cannot leave this marriage. That's the definition of a prisoner." June moved toward her then, each step deliberate and controlled. He stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Up close, she noticed things she'd missed before. A small scar above his left eyebrow. The way his jaw tensed when he was holding back words. The dangerous calm that radiated from him like heat from fire. You want to call a lawyer? He pulled her phone from his pocket and held it out to her. Call one. Try the embassy. Try anyone you think can help you. She stared at the phone like it might explode in her hand. This had to be a trick. Why would he just give her the phone? But Maya snatched it anyway, her fingers closing around the familiar device like a lifeline. Joon stepped back, hands sliding into his pockets, and walked toward the door where Min-jae still stood guard. I'll give you privacy, Joon said, his tone almost bored. Take your time. The door closed behind them, and Maya was alone. Her hands shook as she pulled up the browser, searching for international lawyers in Seoul. The first firm looked legitimate, professional. She dialed the number before she could second-guess herself. Kim and Associates? How may I direct your call? The woman's English was crisp, perfect. I need to speak to someone about an annulment. It's urgent. One moment, please. The hold music was some generic classical piece that did nothing to calm her racing heart. She paced the length of the living room, her eyes darting to the door every few seconds, half expecting Joon to burst back in and rip the phone from her hands. Attorney Kim speaking. How can I assist you? Relief flooded through her. I need help. I got married last night, but I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing, and now the man won't let me leave. I need an annulment immediately. There was a pause. A long one. Then, carefully. May I ask who your husband is? Park Joon-ho. The silence that followed was worse than any response. It stretched on for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then the line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, her stomach dropping. She called back immediately. The same receptionist answered. I'm sorry, but Attorney Kim is unavailable, the woman said, her voice suddenly stiff, formal. I just spoke to him. We got disconnected. I apologize, but our firm cannot take your case. I wish you the best. Click. Her hands trembled harder now. She tried another firm. This time, the lawyer answered directly, sounding rushed and impatient. I need help with an annulment. My husband is Park Joon-ho and… The man's sharp intake of breath cut her off. Then came a sound that made her blood run cold. He was laughing. Not a friendly laugh, but the kind of laugh that said she'd just told him the world's best joke. Good luck with that, Mrs. Park, he said, still chuckling, and hung up. 3 more firms, 3 more rejections. One lawyer didn't even let her finish speaking before the line went dead. Another told her frankly that no one in Seoul would touch a case involving the Seoul Syndicate unless they had a death wish. Maya's chest tightened. She could barely breathe. She dialed the Nigerian embassy with shaking fingers, asking for emergency services. Nigerian Citizen Services, this is Lisa. How can I help you? My name is Maya Bennett. I'm a Nigerian citizen and I've been forced into a marriage. I need help getting home. I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me pull up your file. There was typing, then a pause. I see here that you're Maya Park now. Congratulations on your recent marriage. I didn't want to get married, I was drunk. I don't even remember most of it. I understand this might be overwhelming, but according to our records, you filed your marriage certificate this morning at 7 a.m. You also submitted a change of address form and appeared via video call to confirm all documents. Is there a specific legal concern? Maya's world tilted. What video call? I was asleep this morning. Ma'am, I'm looking at the footage right now. You're wearing a white robe, sitting in what appears to be a study. You confirmed your intention to update your marital status and residency. You seemed quite coherent and willing. The phone nearly slipped from Maya's grip. Video call? Study? She remembered nothing. Nothing except waking up in that massive bed with a marriage certificate and a stranger calling her his wife. That's not possible, she whispered. Mrs. Park, I can send you the footage if you'd like to review it yourself. I want to report a kidnapping. The woman's tone shifted, becoming more cautious. Are you currently in immediate danger? Was she? Maya looked around the pristine penthouse, at the untouched breakfast on the table, at the luxury surrounding her like a velvet trap. He won't let me leave Seoul. Are you being physically restrained? No, but has he threatened you with violence? Not exactly, but he's in the Korean Mafia and… Mrs. Park. The woman's voice became firmer, more bureaucratic. We can provide resources for difficult domestic situations, but we cannot intervene in a legal marriage without evidence of abuse or immediate danger. If you have proof of criminal activity, you can file a report with Korean authorities. Otherwise, if you're experiencing marital difficulties, we can provide information about divorce proceedings. The call ended with a list of resources Maya didn't want and couldn't use. She sat there, phone clutched in her hand, feeling the walls close in. The door opened, and Joon walked back in. He didn't ask how the calls went. The answer was written all over her face. Finished? His voice carried no mockery, no triumph. Just a simple question. Maya looked up at him, and for the first time since waking up in this nightmare, she felt something shift inside her. The panic was still there, the fear still clawed at her throat, but underneath it all, anger began to burn, hot and bright and dangerous. What did you do to me this morning? The words came out sharp, accusatory. The embassy said I made a video call, that I filed paperwork. I don't remember any of that. Joon moved to the bar, cart near the window, and poured himself a drink. Whiskey, neat. He took a sip before answering, his back to her. You were awake, functioning. You showered, got dressed, drank coffee. You seemed perfectly fine when you made those calls. That's impossible. He turned to face her then, and something in his expression made her breath catch. It wasn't cruelty she saw there. It was something more complex. Understanding mixed with guilt. Impossible? He set the glass down. You were destroyed last night, Maya. I watched you drink yourself numb in that bar. You told me you wanted to forget everything. Wanted to wake up as someone new. I didn't mean marry a stranger. The mind does strange things when it's protecting itself from pain, Joon said quietly. Sometimes it creates distance between what we do and what we remember. Maybe part of you wanted this, wanted the chaos. Wanted something so completely different from your old life that you couldn't go back even if you tried. Maya wanted to argue, but doubt crept in. Had she been functioning this morning? Had some autopilot version of herself taken over while the real her hid from reality? Why me? The question came out smaller than she intended. You could have anyone. Why drag me into your world? Joon was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, tapped something, and showed her the screen. It was security footage from what looked like a hotel lobby. The timestamp was from 6 months ago. In the video, a man was being aggressive with a hotel employee, shouting and waving his arms. Then a woman walked into frame. She was smaller than the angry man, but she stepped between him and the terrified employee without hesitation. Even without sound, her body language was clear. Back off. The woman was Maya. That's the Imperial Hotel, Joon said. I own it. I was there that day for a meeting when I saw you defend my employee from a drunk businessman. You didn't know who owned the hotel. Didn't know anyone was watching. You just saw someone being hurt and decided to do something about it. Maya remembered that day vaguely. She'd been checking in for her first business trip to Seoul, and some Western tourist had been screaming at the young woman behind the desk over a billing error. Most people would have looked away, Joon continued, especially in a foreign country where they don't speak the language well. But you didn't. You stood up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves. Maya stared at the phone screen, watching her past self stand between the angry man and the trembling hotel employee. She remembered how her heart had pounded, how her hands had shaken even as she'd kept her voice steady. She'd been terrified, but she'd done it anyway. That doesn't explain why you married me, she said, handing the phone back. Joon pocketed the device, his expression unreadable. After that day, I couldn't stop thinking about you. The fire in your eyes, the way you didn't back down even when you were clearly scared. I had my people find out who you were. Maya Bennett, Nigerian marketing consultant from Atlanta, in Seoul for a 3-day conference. You had people research me? The violation of it made her skin crawl. I wanted to know who you were, if that courage was real or just a momentary impulse. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I own half the hotels and restaurants in Gangnam. Every time you dined somewhere, used a car service, checked into a hotel, the reports came to me. I told myself I was just making sure my establishments were treating guests well, but really, I just wanted to know about you. Maya's mind raced back, trying to remember. 6 months ago, that first Seoul trip before she had relocated here for work. That's stalking, she said flatly. That's interest, Joon corrected. My managers would mention the Nigerian woman who came in regularly. Always working, always alone. I'd pull up the security feed sometimes, watch you type away on your laptop, see you on video calls with who I assumed was family back home, and I realized something. You were lonely, smiling on the outside, efficient and professional, but there was this sadness in your eyes when you thought no one was looking. The accuracy of his observation made her chest tight. 6 months ago, she'd still been with Marcus, but the cracks were already showing. The missed calls, the excuses, the feeling that she was holding on to something already gone. When you left Seoul after that first trip, I thought that was it. Then 2 months later, a report crossed my desk. Maya Bennett had signed a lease in Gangnam. Work visa approved. Relocated permanently. He paused. I don't believe in coincidences, but that felt close. His eyes held hers, unflinching. I had my people monitor you, the restaurants you ate at, the places you shopped. All businesses under my protection. You were alone in my city, and I wanted to make sure you stayed safe. He took a sip of his whiskey. That's what I told myself anyway. The truth? I was interested. And when I want something, I pay attention to it. That's not romantic, Maya said, her voice sharp. That's obsessive. Yes, Joon agreed simply. It is. I'm not a good man, Maya. I've never pretended to be. But I'm honest about what I want. And I wanted you. So you got me drunk and married me? His jaw tightened. I didn't plan that. When I saw you in that bar last night, falling apart, I should have walked away, should have let you grieve your relationship and go home. But I couldn't. I sat down next to you, and for the first time in years, I had a conversation where I wasn't Park Joon-ho, head of the Seoul Syndicate. I was just a man talking to a woman who made him feel something other than empty. And the marriage? Was your idea, Joon said, and there was something almost rueful in his tone. You were 7 shots in, crying about your ex, and you said you wanted to do something crazy, something that would make him realize what he'd lost. I said maybe you should sleep on that decision. You said no, you wanted to get married. To me? Right then. Maya's face burned. She could almost hear herself saying it, could imagine the reckless desperation that would have driven those words. I should have said no, Joon admitted, should have taken you back to your hotel and walked away, but I didn't want to. So I took you to a 24-hour chapel and you signed the papers, and you kissed me like I was the answer to every question you'd ever had. The memory tried to surface, his lips on hers, the taste of whiskey and something darker. The feeling that she was burning her old life to the ground and rising from the ashes as someone new. And this morning? She asked quietly. The video calls? The paperwork? You woke up at 6. I was in the study working, and you came in wearing that robe, asking where the coffee was. We talked. You seemed fine, maybe a little quiet. You asked to use my computer to handle some paperwork. Said you wanted to update your emergency contact information since you were in Seoul. I didn't think anything of it. I don't remember any of that. I know. June's expression softened slightly. And I'm sorry. If I'd known you were blocking it all out, I would have stopped you. Would have made you rest. But you seemed so calm, so in control. I thought maybe you'd made peace with what happened. Before Maya could respond, June's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor changed. Every muscle in his body went rigid, his expression shifting from guarded to lethal in the span of a heartbeat. "We have a problem," he said, his voice cold as winter. He turned the phone toward her, and Maya's blood turned to ice. The image on the screen was a photo of her and June leaving the chapel last night. She was laughing, leaning into him, his arm around her waist. They looked like any happy newlywed couple. But someone had drawn a red target over her face, and below the image, a message in English. The syndicate's new bride. Pretty. Fragile. Easy. Who sent this? Maya whispered. The Jade Serpents. June's thumb moved, pulling up more messages. Each one was worse than the last. Photos of her at restaurants over the past week. Leaving her apartment. Shopping in Myeongdong. Someone had been following her, documenting her movements. Their arrival organization, Chinese-Korean operation trying to move into Seoul. They've been testing my defenses for months, looking for weaknesses. And I'm a weakness. You're my wife. His voice was hard as steel. Which makes you both a target and a protected asset. They'll use you to get to me if they can. Ransom, leverage, or worse. Maya felt the room spin. She sat down hard on the nearest chair, her legs suddenly unable to hold her weight. This is insane. 24 hours ago, my biggest problem was a cheating boyfriend. I know. June crouched in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. And I'm sorry. If I could go back and make different choices, I would. But we're here now, and those men know you exist. Know you're connected to me. Divorcing you won't change that. They'll assume it's a trick, or they'll use you anyway just to send a message. So what do? You stay close to me. You let Minjai and my other men protect you. And you trust that I will burn this city to the ground before I let anyone touch you. The intensity in his voice should have scared her. Maybe it did. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Because despite everything, despite the insanity of the situation, June's protection felt real. Solid. Like maybe, just maybe, she'd accidentally married the one man in Seoul who could actually keep her safe. I need air, Maya said, standing abruptly. I need to think. The balcony, June said, rising with her. Stay away from the railing. I have snipers on the neighboring buildings, but so might they. She froze, hand on the balcony door. Snipers, you're serious. Always. This is getting intense, right? Would you trust a dangerous man to protect you, or would you risk running? Let me know in the comments what you'd do. And don't forget to like this video if you're hooked on Maya's story. The balcony was massive, probably bigger than her entire apartment. Morning sun warmed her skin, but it did nothing to chase away the cold fear settling into her bones. She moved to the center, away from the edges like June had warned, and tried to process everything. Marcus's betrayal seemed almost quaint now. Cheating felt like such a small problem compared to organized crime and death threats and forced marriages. How had her life spiraled so completely out of control in less than 24 hours? Behind her, she heard June on the phone, his voice low and sharp as he spoke in rapid Korean. He was orchestrating something, moving pieces on a board she couldn't see. And she was one of those pieces now, whether she liked it or not. The door opened and Minjai stepped onto the balcony. He didn't speak, just took up a position near the door with his hands clasped in front of him. A silent reminder that even out here, she wasn't alone, wasn't free. But maybe freedom was overrated. Maybe what she needed right now wasn't freedom. Maybe it was safety. And as much as she hated to admit it, the safest place in Seoul right now was probably right here, in the penthouse of a man, dangerous enough to make rival gangs think twice. Maya took a deep breath and turned back toward the penthouse. Through the glass doors, she could see Joon pacing, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing sharply. He looked every inch the powerful man he claimed to be. Dangerous, commanding, absolutely in control. And somehow, against all logic and reason, she was his wife. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt since discovering Marcus's betrayal. Protected. Maya stood on the balcony for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. The city stretched below her, millions of people living normal lives, unaware that somewhere above them, a woman's entire existence had been rewritten overnight. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to make sense of the impossible situation she'd landed in. Behind her, the balcony door opened. She didn't turn around, but she knew it was Joon. She could feel his presence like a shift in air pressure. "They're mobilizing," he said quietly. "The Jade Serpents. My sources say they're planning something within the next 48 hours. Planning what? To test me, to see if the new bride is really worth protecting, or if she's just a passing distraction they can exploit." Maya finally turned to face him. The morning light caught his features, making him look almost vulnerable despite the hard set of his jaw. "And what am I? A distraction or something worth protecting?" Joon moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. "You're my wife. That makes you worth everything. We barely know each other. I know that you defend people weaker than yourself without being asked. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous and that you take your coffee with too much sugar. I know you call your sister every Sunday morning Nigerian time, no matter where you are in the world. I know you're terrified right now, but you're standing here anyway, trying to find a way through instead of falling apart." His eyes searched her face. "What else do I need to know?" The honesty in his voice did something to her chest, made it tight and warm at the same time. This wasn't how love stories were supposed to start. There were supposed to be dates and flowers and slow builds to forever. Not drunk chapels and marriage certificates and death threats before breakfast. But maybe her old approach to love hadn't worked anyway. Marcus had been safe and predictable, and approved by everyone who knew her. And he'd still betrayed her in the worst possible way. "I don't know if I can do this," Maya admitted. "This life, your world, the danger. You don't have to do anything except survive. I'll handle the rest." "That's not living. That's just existing." Joon's expression shifted, something that might have been respect flickering in his eyes. "Then tell me what you need. I need to understand what I'm trapped in, your world, your business, what it means to be married to you. I need the truth, not the sanitized version." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Come inside. If you want the truth, I'll give it to you." They sat in his study, a room Maya hadn't seen yet. Dark wood, leather chairs, and walls lined with books in Korean, English, and what looked like Chinese. Joon poured them both whiskey despite the early hour. She took a sip and nearly choked. It was smoother than anything she'd ever tasted and probably cost more than her monthly rent. "The Seoul Syndicate isn't like what you see in movies," Joon began. "We don't run drugs or traffic people. We control information, protection, and legitimate businesses with underground components. Hotels, restaurants, tech companies. About 60% legal, 40% operating in gray areas the law chooses not to see." "Gray areas like what?" "Gambling, Money moving across borders without excessive government oversight, protection services for businesses that prefer not to involve police. We're the shadow government of Seoul's business district. When something needs to happen quietly, efficiently, we make it happen. Maya processed this. And the Jade Serpents? They want what we have. Territory, connections, respect. They've been pushing into Seoul for 2 years, trying to establish themselves through violence and intimidation. We've managed to contain them, but they're getting desperate. Desperate organizations do stupid things. Like kidnapping someone's wife. Exactly. June leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Which is why I need you to understand the rules of this world. You don't go anywhere without Minjae or another guard. You don't trust anyone I haven't vetted. You don't discuss my business with anyone, ever. And if something happens, if you're ever in danger, you run. You don't try to be brave, you just run and let my men handle it. I'm not good at running. I know, that's what worries me. His phone buzzed again. June glanced at it, and his expression went cold. He stood abruptly, already moving toward the door. Stay here. Don't leave this room. What's happening? They just grabbed one of my underbosses. This is the opening move. He paused at the door, looking back at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Lock this door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Minjae. Understand? Maya nodded. Fear and adrenaline flooding her system. Be careful. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, like he wasn't used to anyone worrying about him. I always am. The door closed, and Maya heard the lock click from the outside. She was alone in the study, trapped again, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like protection rather than imprisonment. She moved to the window, looking out at Seoul's skyline. Somewhere out there, a war was starting, and somehow, impossibly, she was at the center of it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Pretty penthouse. Shame if something happened to it. Or to you. Maya's hands shook as she screenshotted the message. She should be terrified, should be falling apart. But instead, she felt something else rising inside her. Anger. These people thought she was weak, easy, fragile. They thought marrying June made her a target instead of a threat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. She pulled up Minjae's contact, which had apparently been added to her phone without her knowledge, and forwarded the screenshot. His response came immediately. On my way to you. Don't open door for anyone else. 30 seconds later, a knock. Mrs. Park, it's Minjae. Maya unlocked the door. The giant man stepped inside, his expression darker than she'd seen before. He looked at her phone, then at her face. You're not scared. I'm terrified, she corrected. But I'm also angry. They're threatening me to get to him. That's not okay. Minjae's expression might have been approval. Boss chose well. I didn't give him much choice. No, Minjae agreed. But you're choosing now. To stay, to fight, to be part of this family. That's different. Was she choosing that? Maya looked down at the wedding ring she hadn't noticed before. Simple platinum band, elegant and understated. When had he put this on her finger? Last night at the chapel, probably, during one of the many moments she couldn't remember. She twisted the ring, feeling its weight. 24 hours ago, she'd been Maya Bennett, a heartbroken marketing consultant trying to pick up the pieces of her broken relationship. Now she was Maya Park, wife of Seoul's most dangerous man, target of a rival gang, and somehow, against all logic, exactly where she needed to be. Tell June to be careful, she said quietly. Tell him his wife expects him home for dinner. Minjae actually smiled. Yes, ma'am. 3 hours later, Maya was pacing the study when she heard the penthouse door open. She ran into the living room before Minjae could stop her. Joon stood in the doorway, his white shirt torn and blood-stained, a cut above his eyebrow still bleeding. But he was alive. He was home. "You're hurt," Maya said, already moving toward him. "It's nothing." But he swayed slightly, and she saw pain flicker across his face. She slipped under his arm, supporting his weight despite their size difference. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up." Joon let her guide him to the couch, something like wonder in his expression. "You're still here. Where else would I be? Running. Most people would be running." Maya grabbed the first aid kit Min-jae handed her and started cleaning the cut on Joon's forehead. Her hands were steadier than she expected. "I'm not most people. You should know that by now." "I'm beginning to," he said softly. She worked in silence, cleaning his wounds with careful precision. When she finished, Joon caught her wrist gently, making her look at him. "This life isn't going to get easier," he said. "The danger won't disappear just because we want it to. There will be more threats, more violence, more nights like this. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve." "Then what can you promise me?" His eyes held hers, dark and intense and completely honest. "That I will fight for you with everything I have. That you'll never face this world alone. That every day you choose to stay, I'll give you a reason not to regret it." It wasn't poetry. It wasn't romance novel declarations or movie-perfect speeches. But it was real, raw, true. Maya leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't like the drunken kisses she couldn't remember from last night. This was clear-headed and deliberate. A choice made with full knowledge of what it meant. She was choosing him. Choosing this dangerous, impossible, insane new life. When she pulled back, Joon looked at her like she'd just given him something priceless. Then he pulled her back for another kiss. A more passionate one. "I'm still angry about the stalking," Maya said. "And the trapped-in soul thing. And the fact that you let me marry you while drunk." Noted. "But I'm choosing to stay. Not because I'm trapped, but because maybe, just maybe, the drunk me knew something the sober me was too scared to admit." "And what's that?" "That safe choices already broke my heart once. Maybe it's time to try something dangerous." Joon pulled her closer, wincing slightly at his injuries but not letting go. "Dangerous, I can do." "Good." She settled against him, her head on his shoulder. "Because I have a feeling we're going to need dangerous for what comes next." "So what do you think? Would you have run, or would you have stayed and fought for this dangerous love? Drop your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories that'll keep you up at night wondering, what if? And smash that like button if Maya and Joon's story had you hooked from that very first morning after. Trust me, their story is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens when the Jade Serpents make their next move. Outside the penthouse windows, Seoul glittered in the afternoon sun, beautiful and dangerous and full of possibilities. And inside, two people who should never have met, should never have married, and definitely should never have fallen for each other, held on tight and prepared for whatever came next. Because sometimes the wrong night leads to exactly the right forever. Even if that forever comes with bodyguards, death threats, and a husband who runs the Korean Mafia.